our webinar. Does look like the attendees has leveled off, so I think everyone that's planning to join us tonight has joined, and we can kick things off here. Jumping right in to make the best use of our time. A few housekeeping items. Tonight's webinar is scheduled for 60 minutes with approximately 20 minutes reserved for Q&A. We do have some questions that were submitted ahead of time, so we'll be answering those first since people took the time to submit those while they're registering. So we'll take those and answer as many of those as we can tonight. And then as time allows, we'll take your questions that are left. All participants, everybody is muted and your video has been disabled, so you don't have to worry about the cat walking by behind you or some kid running by. You're muted and all videos disabled. The webinar slides as well as the recording will be sent out to everyone who registered and posted to our documentation site and website about 24 hours after this concludes. So look for this tomorrow afternoon or evening sometime. Questions, please submit those through the Zoom Q&A feature. The chat has been disabled, so the only way to get those questions to us is to use the Zoom Q&A feature. On your Zoom toolbar, that's a little, looks like two little message bubbles and says Q&A on it. Click into that and you'll be able to send us your questions. Speaking of Q&A, we want this to be as interactive as possible. And so as we're going along, if you have questions about something we're talking about, or you have questions about LodgeMaster in general, something we don't cover, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And like we mentioned just a bit ago, we will try to get to those at the end. If it makes sense to answer the question as we're going along, we will do that. But if it's not relative to what we're talking about at the right exact time that comes in, we will hold that till the end just to make sure we get through what we have planned, because we do have some important updates and things we want to share. Before we dive into the updates, we see a lot of familiar faces here, but if you don't know who we are, I'm Chad Blanchard, and joining me tonight is Michael Card and Robert Anstedt. We serve on the LodgeMaster team and are conducting the webinar tonight. A lot of familiar faces, so thanks for those of you that are joining us again that we've seen around at our webinars and trainings in the past. If this is your first time, thanks for making time, and we hope you pick something up out of the webinar tonight and are able to get your questions answered if that's why you're here. So hopping right in to the updates. This is going to be what's new and kind of talking about anything that major updates to the Lodge client. Whether that be core modules such as members or events, or things such as inductions or the member portal, which are some of our new features. So the first part of this, we'll talk through some updates, and then we'll actually hop into the Lodge client. We'll spend maybe 20 minutes in the Lodge client looking at some things. Then we have some wrap-up slides to do that. So diving in, talking about inductions. And so the tools that are available today, we released the induction module last, I think it was summer, early fall, around Momentum. We released what we're calling the Inductions module, which is comprised of several tools. The first tool, the Unit Election Management module within Inductions, that was a comprehensive setup wizard that lodges could use to manage their election process from start to finish. That included everything, or that includes, I should say, the ability to schedule elections, manage your election teams, manage automated communications. Those are within that election management. The scheduling assistant, it allows lodges to schedule elections electronically and allow units to request those, eliminating the need for the lodge to develop some type of system on their own or use calendars at meetings. Also included in there, I kind of mentioned the communications. We have unit leader communication for scheduling and communicating after the election all the way through or dealing onto Brotherhood. The candidate communication is included in that. So we communicate, we send, the module has the ability to send communications to candidates after they're elected and before their ordeal or before call out, eliminating the need for the lodge to do that. And that's all included in one module, and that's available today. Also available today is the member portal for candidates. And so once an airman or a scout has been elected and is on their path to becoming an airman, they receive an invite to log into the member portal with an Aero ID. That Aero ID is used for our member portal. It's also used for the National OA registration system, as well as other OA systems that they'll access as they become an airman and get more involved with the lodge, their section or region or national level. So we start out right away creating that single sign-on account so they can get into that portal. And that portal consists of a place where they can update their personal information and make sure the lodge has the right contact information for them and their parent, to make sure the lodge is able to communicate with them effectively and has the most updated information. Maybe they moved since they were elected, or the Scoutmaster just didn't have maybe their phone number or something. They're able to add that there. Candidates will also be able to see upcoming ordeals, so they can register for those. If they're not registered, the member portal will show them what they can register for. And if they're already registered, we have an ordeal journey in there, as well as a calendar and a way to contact the lodge. It's all included in the member portal. Kind of working on top of the unit election piece is the unit leader portal, the election request portal. That is available for units to request an election with the lodge electronically. They don't need to sign in for that or anything. It's all handled with secure links, so it's very easy for them to use. Also available in that unit leader portal is adult nominations. And so that was recently released. I believe that maybe this week, beginning of this week, I think we did that release. So the unit leader portal for adult nominations, once they've completed their unit election and the lodge has accepted and approved those results, the unit's invited to go back and submit their adult nominations electronic. So those are the features and the inductions that are available today, but we have some more things coming. So the unit leader portal to input eligible youth. This is coming next week, where unit leaders, once that election is scheduled, they'll be able to go back into the portal once the lodge has accepted that election and actually schedule it. So once the unit makes a request, the lodge schedules it and it's locked in and confirmed, they'll be able to go in and input eligible youth. Today, they can send a spreadsheet back to the lodge. We provide a template to every Scoutmaster or unit leader who gets those automated emails. They can send that template back. Beginning next week, they'll be able to put those candidates in on their own, and they'll show up for the lodge to create ballots and print the election materials beforehand. The final induction emails. So as of earlier this week, when we did that release, beginning next week, so in addition to the emails we released this week, hopefully next week or in the coming weeks, we're going to enable all the remaining emails in the induction module, with the exception of the Brotherhood ones. So there's when we dive in, we'll see those Brotherhood emails, but there's an email welcoming new members. Those are not going to be enabled. The new member follow-up will not be, and the Brotherhood emails. There's a Brotherhood eligible and a Brotherhood congratulations emails. Those will not be enabled until we have the Brotherhood portal later on, which is scheduled tentatively for spring, this spring. So they'll be coming, in a few weeks. But those Brotherhood emails will be turned on at that point. Then coming later, the member portal for all members. What this will be a portal, the same portal that the candidates use, but we'll add features such as the ability to view their membership card. They'll be able to update their information, access the lodge calendar, contact the lodge. Eventually, coming later, they'll be able to pay dues, and there's a possibility, of us adding event registration to that portal. Initially, it'll be a place for them to update their information, unsubscribe from emails if they don't want to get quote unquote marketing type or promotional email from the lodge. They will be able to unsubscribe from that. Excuse me. That has been a common request to have self unsubscribe, and that's part of this portal. And so when we open that portal up, we will have a full invite process. The lodge will be able to invite everyone to this portal, and it'll be a one-stop, one place for every airman to log in and manage their order-the-air information with the lodge. And then coming after that will be the unit leader portal with access to member data. This will allow unit leaders to see who in their unit is an airman in the lodge. It'll allow them to pay their dues for those members and see who's Brotherhood eligible. It'll just give unit leaders insight and access to lodge data that they don't have now. They may rely on the lodge sending out registration lists or member lists or who's eligible and sending postcards or things like that. And that'll all be included in this unit leader portal that'll come later. Looking at when you can expect to see this. So as we mentioned, the unit election management That has been released. That was released last summer, early fall timeframe. The member portal that came with that. The unit leader portal, we put release /Q3 2021 here. We did that because as we announced and in an email, the unit leader portal was a joint development effort between the LodgeMaster team and the Boy Scouts of America, their Scout Book team, their development teams on that side. Due to the ongoing restructuring of the BSA, the development of that was a little bit delayed. And so what we ended up doing, we released the features of the member portal for units to request elections, input their eligible youth, and submit adult nominations. Coming later, which is what the Q3 2021 will be, is the unit leader portal access to all member data. So that'll come later as we continue our efforts with the BSA to develop that. Coming spring of this year, so later after this will be the member portal for all, or for Brotherhood members. So those ordeal candidates that are now ordeal members. They were candidates and went through their ordeal, and our ordeal members, they'll be able to use that same portal to register for Brotherhood workshops or a Brotherhood class or their Brotherhood event, whatever your lodge calls those events. So they'll be able to do that from a portal they're familiar with. And we'll have a Brotherhood journey similar to the ordeal journey. So they'll be very familiar with it because they've already used this portal when they were a candidate. That'll come spring 2021. And then the member portal for all members, which one that's scheduled for Q3 2021. And like we mentioned with that, all members will have the ability to log into a portal, update their information, print their membership card, view calendars, contact the lodge, things like that. That'll be included in that. So with that, that's all the slides we have for now. So we are going to switch over to a live demo of the Lodge client, point out some things that we've changed, some new features. Some things may seem like review, but we know we have a lot of new faces on this on the webinar tonight that maybe haven't seen the inductions tool. So we're not going to, it won't be a complete training on how to use the induction module. We have another webinar for that, and a recording from Momentum, and we recommend going and check that out. But we will highlight some things so you have an idea of what's there, in addition to pointing out the new features and little updates we've made. So I'm going to get the screen sharing switched over here to the Lodge client. While I do that, if there's any questions, or Mike or Rob, if you have anything you want to add, or if any questions we want to take right now while I'm getting switched over.
We did get a couple of general questions in the pre-submissions, and I can answer a couple of those now while you're getting set up. The big one I think you sort of covered already. We are planning by the end of the year to have the ability for lodges to do dues payments directly in the new member portal, and events soon into next year. So it's something that we're working on right now. There's a lot of development that goes into that from managing the payment processing side, but it is an in-progress project, and we're going to start testing it later this year and hope to have it out to everybody soon. I think those were that repeated a number of times in our ahead of time questions. So I think that covers a big one.
Great, thank you. So hopping right in, this is our new portal. So if you visit portal.oa-bsa.org, we did release this a little bit ago, so you may be familiar with this. If you just have access to LodgeMaster, you may not ever see this if you have a default set. But as we add features, or we added the member portal and you have LodgeMaster access, this is a one-stop. It's a single portal where you log in with Arrow ID and are able to access all the applications in the order of the arrow that you have access to. So we're hopping into LodgeMaster this evening. We're going to start with inductions since that's the biggest piece. So if you don't have, if you're following along or you want to follow along after this, if you don't see the inductions, so here's our inductions module here on the left and in the left menu of LodgeMaster. If you don't see that, or it's disabled and you can't click on it, if you're not a lodge administrator, you'll want to talk to your lodge administrator to get access to that. If you are a lodge administrator on this call and you're not able to get to that, you'll need to grant yourself access to that. That module is disabled by default, and to do that, you'll go into users, you'll edit your user, select lodge at the lodge level. Then we have this new permission set down here, inductions. So we do support the ability, or the inductions module rather supports the hierarchy and the lodge structure. So at the top level, users can have lodge level access to manage unit elections, meaning they'd be able to see all elections in the lodge for all units, all chapters. We have this election approval flag at the lodge level, as well as setup. So there's some screens that are you can restrict access to. Maybe you want somebody to have elections to be able to see all elections, but you don't want them approving elections or setting them up. We have the flags here for that. Sliding on down to the chapter level, you can see we have a similar set of controls here for inductions at the chapter level. So you can delegate access to the inductions module at the chapter level. The setup is reserved for the lodge level, but we do have a chapter level approval as well as viewing and managing those. So we wanted to point out, if you don't have access to that, if you maybe missed our first webinar on how to get access to that, or your admin trying to follow along, that's what you need to do to get access to that. Once you're set up with access, hopping into the inductions module, quick overview for those maybe new here, or a quick refresher. This dashboard does update in real time. So this is a great place to hop in if you're a vice chief of maybe elections or your membership advisor. This dashboard will be a great place for you to live and kind of follow the elections through the lodge if you're using this module. This updates, like I mentioned, in real time. It shows here either your bars, you want to strive for 100%, and this updates as you schedule and complete those. It also, it's a quick way to see that you have, maybe 70% completed, but you've only posted 10%. You have a lot of posting to do, your chapters or however you run your elections, they need to get posting. This dashboard is a chart, or there's a nice report here, this unit election statistics report. This is a great report. It's a nice one-page report that kind of breaks down the numbers, something easy to look at in an LEC meeting. We see our upcoming visits, our visit scheduling and visits awaiting posting. These update with units that, the units in this upcoming visits, their elections are in the future, they haven't happened. Our visit scheduling, our unit over here, Troop 103, is requested election. As a lodge, you can go in here and approve this election. And that kicks off an email to the unit that you've accepted that election and it's scheduled. Our awaiting posting screen, or box over here on the right side, those elections have happened and you're waiting for results to be posted. So it all lives in one spot. If you're a chapter officer or you have chapter access, you only see elections for that, or for your respective chapter. Where you have access, lodge would see all. And so hopping into the visit election management, we're kind of going to jump around through a few different pieces of the module here, but we're going to start with visit election management. This grid gives you an overview of where all your elections are at, the status of them. You can see here I'm filtered on all visits, something we recently fixed that we hopefully make it easier to kind of see where elections are at. You can now filter, since I filtered this down to scheduled, I have the ability to filter this down again by chapter. Before you got all of them, you weren't able to filter down. We know for larger lodges, they wanted the ability or needed the ability to filter this down more fine grain. That now works properly. And so I can see here for Chief Pomparock, I have 4 elections that are scheduled. You can see when they're happening and the time. I can go back to all our visits, and I'm going to hop into election for crew 163 that's not scheduled yet. If I click the schedule button, you'll notice at the top, this is new since we released the module, the unit scheduling link. So if I copy this link, I can click here and go to it, or I can hit the copy button here and I can send that in an email. So I copied that. If we hop into this link, this would be sent to the unit electronically. This is how they would request their election. They hit request an election, and they're able to fill out exactly when they want that election to be, with their 3 date options, what time that takes place, where it takes place, if there's any notes they need to communicate with the lodge, they can do that right here. They fill in their unit leader's information, as well as the person submitting it. Maybe it's not the unit leader submitting this. It's the committee chair or some assistant scoutmaster submitting this. So we want to capture both the scoutmaster's information, that unit leader, as well as the information of the person submitting this. So if there's questions, we can contact that person and the lodge can sort them out. So if I put this, we put this in here. And we submit this off to the lodge. And I need a state. We are happening in the great state of Iowa there. And we submit that. And it goes off to the lodge for scheduling. This is a live demo here, so I did put incorrect dates in there. But now if we submit this off to the lodge, that's been submitted. If the lodge goes into back to the dashboard of inductions, you can see we did over here, we do have another unit that requested the election, and we can go in and we could schedule that and it would kick off that email. Moving back to visit election management, another new feature. So that's how you request selection. Another new feature that we want to show is how you import, or the ability to import candidates. So the Scoutmaster got an email at this point that we scheduled the election. They're now able to, they get an email with a template file. They sent that back to us. So I'm going to go ahead and import our eligible. I can select my file for import. I upload this. You can see all of our fields matched over nicely. We're going to start this import. And I'm going to open, I didn't get any errors, so I'm going to open this visit. Looks like they had 20 candidates, which, great for that unit. They must be a large unit. You can see all of our, all right, we did start recording. We will do our best to salvage what was already covered. If we did lose that, we do sincerely apologize.
For everybody just rejoining, we got kicked off of the Zoom webinar for some reason. We're going to look into that later, but we really apologize for that.
I do see, looks like some people are attempting to join yet. All right, we don't, it doesn't appear we have everyone back, but for sake of time, we will go ahead and get started again here. As Mike mentioned, if you do have a question, I think we did lose all those that were submitted. So if you wouldn't mind submitting those again, we will answer them. Okay, so I don't remember what the exact last thing I was that I had said when we dropped, but what we were demonstrating is the ability to import eligible youth from a file. So you can see here, I imported all these from a file. At this point, I'm able to run my ballots. If I run my election ballots, the lodge can bring these, print them out ahead of time, or send them to the unit leader to print out and bring them with to the election. So that was an import. Hopefully everybody's seen that before the webinar cut out on us there. But hopping back, this election is now scheduled. Once this election happens and we post the results and those are approved, the unit would get an email with the list of candidates that were elected, their associated information. The unit leader has that. They're then invited to go back in to the unit leader portal, the same portal they were in before, just a different set of screens, and submit adult nominations. So they would have got this in an email to them. The lodge can send this to a unit by going into an election that's approved. I want to make sure that everybody picks up that the election has to be the candidates have to be approved and it has to be saved. When it's just scheduled or awaiting posting, you won't have this option because we can't calculate how many adult nominations they get. Once you see the election is here in the approved status, that I view the election over here on the right under unit links, I have the submit adult nomination link, so I can copy it again and send it. I can click into it. This is the adult candidate, or the adult candidate nomination form, excuse me. I can hit submit an adult nomination. I can put in that adult candidate's information. We ask their national background. This is the same information a lot of lodges ask for in a paper form now. We pulled that right out of those recommended forms. We put this, it's right here. You can go ahead and submit this right here. You put in activities, different things. This all gets sent back to the lodge, their camping requirements. The nomination statements for the unit leader that's submitting this, why that person would be an asset to the Order of the Arrow, what skills they have and what they can bring. You put in who it's submitted by and submit this, and it's sent off to the lodge. If you say you have 10 candidates elected, you could go back in and keep submitting adult nominations. When you go back to that link, you'd see here nominations already been submitted for. It looks like I was nominated to join the Order of the Arrow, which a great honor. This unit has submitted their one nomination. Can't if this unit had the ability, they had more than 3, they had 6 or 10 ordeal candidates elected, they would have the ability to go back in and add additional adult nominations. They can go up to the limit, but they obviously the system does not allow them to submit additional nominations, based on the requirements from the Order of the Arrow. Those adult nominations then hop back into a new screen. Adult nominations here. We have this button, adult nominations. If we hop in here, there you can see my nomination from Crew 7 was submitted earlier today. As a lodge, I can hop in here and view this and see all the information that was submitted by that unit right here. Review anything, make sure it's all, you can go through the review process with your staff advisor or scout executive or whatever process your lodge has for reviewing adult nominations. I can save and approve this, or I can just save and close it. We have both. If I need more time to review or have follow-up questions, whatever the case may be for your lodge, you can save where you're at and come back. Otherwise, I can save and approve the same confirmation box that we have for the youth. Once you save and approve this, they are converted to candidates, and that can't be undone. It is permanent. So I'm going to click OK. This adult nomination has been approved. They are now a candidate in the Order of the Arrow, ready to complete their call out and go through the adult process. The Inductions module in LodgeMaster does support adult nominations at the chapter, or at the, the district and council level. So from the dashboard, if I go back into adult nominations, you can see we have a common link here, council and district nominations. Again, copy button to send that out, or I can hop into it. If I send this out, it's the same exact form that the unit leaders use, except this is, for the scout executive or someone to submit a nomination for somebody on the council, maybe some of the executive board or some council committee, or the district wants to put an arrowman in that's on the district committee or something. They're maybe not affiliated with the unit. We fully support that here. The only difference is you have to select the district. In our case, we have a district in our lodge called council, so we can submit that there. But if this was a nomination for a district, you'd just go ahead and select that district. Form is the exact same, so I'm not going to go through this again because it's the same form, but it goes through a similar process. It would show up back in the adult nomination section here in LodgeMaster, and they would, the lodge would be able to approve that just like any other adult nomination.
Chad, and just to clarify for everyone, you don't need a district called council. It automatically adds council to the list of available things to select on that screen. So just define your regular districts and it'll automatically add council for council submissions.
Thank you for clarifying that. So that's our adult nomination process. Fairly new to the module. We're very excited to bring that. The next thing we want to take a look at is email. We know there's 20+ templates right in the induction setup in the communication wizard here. A lot of email. We've had a lot of feedback, which we greatly appreciate. We want your feedback, and we're glad you're using and sending that feedback. But we've made some changes to make it more user friendly, and we took some of the feedback about maybe too many emails going out or whatever the case may be, and we made some changes. So hopping into the communication wizard here, one thing we've done, we've added some additional helpful not hints, but messages on what exactly is going to happen. You know, in the past, there was some confusion about if I change, you know, the date on this, is it going to send again? Or, you know, somebody put the date, you know, set a date and assume that, you know, we could change it and then, you know, pass and they sent out. So we've added some messages here to clear up and hopefully make it more clear on exactly what's going to happen with these messages when you set a send on date or some send cadence. So for example, the scheduling request, once this is sent, if you change the date, it's not going to send again. Once it's been set, it can't be sent again. Moving through, you'll see similar messages here on this one on sending reminders. In this case, it would be locked once the first reminder is sent. You can change the end date, so you could stop the reminders, but you can't change the start date. That's locked. Once it's set and they're sent, you can't push that out. Moving through the scheduling confirmation, we didn't change any of these. Again, on the preparation message, you can set that, or we added that note there. It'll not, again, it doesn't resend that message, even if you change it here. It's kind of once you set it and it sends it, it's locked in. But it's a common theme you're noticing between all of them. We have that ability in there. Moving through the rest of the emails through this wizard. One thing we've added, so this is our call out registration message. I kind of skipped through some of those emails pretty quick because we didn't change anything in them. I just wanted to show you at the beginning some of those helpful little messages we added that kind of explain better what happens. But we did add on this call out registration message an is enabled. This allows a lodge to shut off this message. So if your lodge doesn't want to send out a call out registration message, come in here as of earlier this week and toggle this is enabled. So I just turned that off by save and continue. You can do the same thing with the reminder. So if you don't want the reminders to go out, maybe you want the call out registration email to go out, but you don't want reminders, I can turn this off and that doesn't go out. So you'll notice that in our registration email specifically, that is enabled, and you can set that. I did toggle some off there. I won't go through all of these because it looks the same for where we added that is enabled. As you can see, that it doesn't change. It works the same way through all of these. You can see here our call out, these are not enabled anymore. We turned off our call out in that field, so you can look for that. As we mentioned, the rest of the emails with the exclusion of the member welcome, the new member follow-up, and the brotherhood emails, they will all be turned on. Mike, correct me, next week are those coming?
Sorry, just needed to unmute there. The goal is the call out and the first 4 are deal ones, plus the do not shows and the welcome from the lodge chief. Those will all be turned on next week. The only ones we are holding on, I'll probably turn on the week after, is the new member welcome message, new member follow-up, brotherhood eligible, and the brotherhood congratulations message.
Thank you. And we will send out an email. We heard your feedback on when we enable these emails. And so a new policy that the team enacted, or a new just standard that we have, is a week before we turn these emails on, we will send an email out informing everyone that we will be turning these on. Excuse me. That we will be turning X, ABCDE messages on to give the lodge time to prepare for those and make sure their dates are set correctly. So we heard your feedback there, and we're adjusting. We realized that just turning those on was not maybe the best way to handle that. So moving right along, I do want to keep us moving. I see there are questions, but a little Lebanese snafu there kind of set us back a little bit. So I'm going to keep moving because we have a lot to cover yet. We wanted to show the member portal for those that haven't seen it and point out some highlights of it. So Moira Rose here is a candidate. She was elected. She has registered for the inductions week. You can see right here on the dashboard as a candidate. what event she's registered for. So June 15th, she'll be completing her deal at Camp Pomporock, and there's the address. You can get to it. Her deal journey is 50% complete. Hopping in here, this is fully customizable. We didn't cover this tonight on how to set this up. That's another webinar. You can go watch the recording on that. But here's the journey for those that haven't maybe seen this. As a candidate, they come in here. There's a series of videos they watch. There's the Spirit of the Arrow books. They can read those here and mark it complete. And this updates the dashboard on 66% complete now. This portal is customizable. These two sections right here, the welcome message, is a little alert message, as well as our cover photo, our banner up here. We'll show you how to do that if we have time, but that's all customizable by the lodge. Here's where a candidate can update their information. This will work the same way when you're a Brotherhood member and get access, or when we opened it up for all members. The update profile looks the same. Here's where they can add an email. So maybe they have their school email. They don't have work. They're not in work yet. School is their work. They can set that there. Their phone number, their address information. The lodge has the ability to add additional types here. It's customizable by the lodge, so they could add school email or add work address or what have you. They can save that. Here's where they can unsubscribe. People have asked about unsubscribing on your own. That happens in the member portal. We have the calendar where an airman, this person in particular only has some lodge-wide events and their chapter meetings here. You are able to see all chapter events, but if they're interested in going to Spring Fellowship, they can see where it's at. After Moira is an airman, if she wants to attend Fall Induction Weekend, if she finds that on the calendar, here are the links to register, customizable by the lodge, of course, and they can click those to go register. A very easy contact form where we pre-populate who you can send this to, the lodge chief or advisor, chapter level contacts. We fill all that in for you. So it's very easy to send a message to lodge and get your questions answered. The ordeal journey wouldn't be there for a member once they're a member and have completed this, or just a member that's added, they completed their ordeal in the past and you're just adding a member later on this year, this fall. They wouldn't see an ordeal or Brotherhood journey. They would just see the member portal and probably some other tabs for maybe membership card and dues by year end and what have you. That's the member portal. Very quick, highlights of it, what it can do. If you're interested in how this works in depth, I recommend you check out our previous webinar. This is the final piece with inductions. We're wrapping up inductions and kind of moving on. We released this member portal as part of inductions. We want to include that with that section. But now we just want to cover a few other, about 4 other things that we've changed in the lodge client that we just wanted to point out that we didn't maybe particularly announce, or we haven't announced yet, but that are coming very soon. I said we were done with inductions, but we're actually going to flip back to inductions real quick for an unscripted or unplanned thing. The ability, this is the adding eligible youth for on the unit leader portal side. So we mentioned coming soon was the ability for unit leaders to add eligible youth. This is what that will look like. So this is kind of the third piece of the unit leader portal that we're going to release. So they would get an email with a link. The lodge would also be able to get it from the inductions manager sent to them. They'll be able to add eligible youth. Again, the beauty of a live demo, we seem to, there we go. So they're able to add their eligible youth. They can in here add, there'll be like a grid system or a method for them to add an unlimited number of candidates. They'll be able to type those in and put those in here and save that, and it'll go back to the lodge. It'll show up in visit election management under the unit. It would look just like if the lodge entered them. And so if I hop back to here where these were imported, if the unit put them in, they would show up in the same place. The process is the exact same from there on out. That is the final piece of inductions. I don't have any more surprises, but we're excited to announce tonight on this webinar that units will be able to add their own candidates in the coming weeks. Hopefully, I think tentatively next week that's going to be released. Couple other little things that we've released in the unit manager. when you're merging units now. So if I merge this unit into, say, crew, well, that's a bad example, but this pack is, see if I have another pack here. Here we go. So this pack is merging. So if I put our validation in here, so I'm going to merge these. I'm going to delete that pack. It's going away. We should get the ability. I may have selected. I think I messed up our example here. Let me attempt this again. So in merging units that are cross chapters, I picked the wrong one. So let's merge this crew into, we need another crew in a different chapter right here. So I'm going to merge crew 604. They're now part of crew 9. They have merged and are on their way to being a single crew. When I merge, we get an error that says unit has inductions that can't be merged. In the past, you got kind of a messy error. So if they do have elections, they can't be merged. What I was trying to show was a different message. Let me see if I can find here. Let's do this troop into a different one here. You're able to, what we're trying to show, what I'm attempting to show here, you're now able to update the chapter of associated unit members. So if you're merging a unit across chapters, it'll now pop up and give you the option to merge the members. And I spelled something wrong here. It gives you the ability to merge the member record, update their chapter. See if I can do this here. This also has elections, so I can't merge that one. The feature I'm actually trying to demonstrate, I'm doing a terrible job of this, I apologize, is when you edit the chapter, not when you merge. If I edit the chapter, thank you, Mike. If I edit the chapter on a unit, if I set this now, they're Iowans. If I save this, I get a message asking them to update or indicating you can update the members to this new chapter. So I hit that. You can see there, update their unit to this new chapter. This can't be undone. So if you check this box and you run this, just know you can't. You could undo it by going into the unit and changing it back and maybe doing it manually. But now anybody in this unit, their chapter will be updated to Iowa. I did a bad job explaining that at the beginning, but that's how this feature works. I can show it again real quick. If I edit this crew and I set the chapter to, if I save this, I get that message. I'm going to update their chapter, and that's updated. The other thing I want to show is we now write, I believe here you can see our communication history. We now write communication logs or entries. We write communication entries at the unit level for what happens in the induction module. So they had a unit election, camp promotion, unit visit on 11/10. We write these records to the unit, so you can see that in units. You had to manually add that before, and now it does it automatically. Moving over to settings, a couple things we want to point out here. From Lodge configuration, we added a new time zone feature. This is the time zone of your council's headquarters, not where you're at. So if you are in a large council or your council spans multiple time zones, or you just happen to live a long ways away from your council, it's a different time zone, don't set this to where you're at and have multiple admins setting this back and forth to where they're at. Set it to the time zone for your council office. This is used in the inductions module for time on reports and in the emails. We will be using this in the whole program overall. Right now, it's specifically used in induction email and in time for reports and inductions, but this will roll out the entire program or be used by every report and email in the system. So we did set this to what we believe was the correct time zone. If this is incorrect for your council offices, go ahead and please set that correctly. I am going to hop out of the Lodge client. We do have some really important things we want to share next. I know we're coming up on time. We did, with the little webinar issue we had, we are going to go over. If you can, I highly recommend you stay online for this next part, because it is very important. We have some additional project updates that we want to communicate with everyone. I'm just getting this set up here. Bear with me one second here while I get the screen sharing kind of switched around here. Okay, so additional project updates. If PowerPoint moves forward, so some policy changes. We have a number of policy changes that we're going to announce tonight, and we want to cover, starting with OALM ID change, a Lodge ID change, units sync. That should not be on the list. There's nothing's changing with the unit sync. That's not changing, but non-members, inactive members, and the offline client. So hopping right in to these policy changes, effective October 1st, 2022. So this is after next year. We are going to remove the OALM ID from LodgeMaster and replace that with BSA ID. So on all reports and grids and screens and editing windows and anywhere in the program that OALM ID is used on anything, it's going to be removed. You're no longer going to be able to see that after October 1st. BSA ID will become that primary key, the primary identifier for all Arrowmen and LodgeMaster. So in the member grid, instead of saying OALM ID, you're going to see BSA ID. It's just going to be a complete replacement. The reason for this, we want the BSA ID to be the single ID that a member uses between the BSA or the Arrow systems. That BSA ID is you have to be a registered member of the BSA to be in the Order of the Arrow. And so to keep things uniform across systems and to enable some of our features with the BSA verification, we felt it was the right time to make the switch to using BSA ID. We know this is a big change, which is why we're doing this next year, to give lodges time to stop using that OALM ID. If they're using it on custom reports or in some custom application, you are going to need to switch to BSA ID. In addition to removing OALM ID in October, Lodge ID is also going to be removed. So if you are using Lodge ID in any custom views or for filtering or any reports or any mail merge things, you will need to transition away from that and start using BSA ID because that field is going to be removed from the program, removed from all reporting, and will no longer be available. Mike, do you want to add anything here? Because I know this is a big change and probably a big shock to everyone. Do you want to add anything or clarify anything for us?
No, I think you covered everything. The primary goal is that we really don't need a separate ID for every person. Every person has a BSA ID, and we support verification through that. So every lodge really needs to get those BSA IDs in for all their members. And this will be a uniform way of administering both verification and access to different programs and stuff, and just sort of be that one ID per person.
So additional policy changes here. These are going to be effective September 1st of this year. So non-member records in members, events, and units. So I don't remember exactly when we made the change to the new non-member type. We got rid of non-members. So you can't flag a member record as non-member anymore. We have a view where you can see those, but in the past you could add non-members. You can no longer do that. So you could add non-members on an event by event basis. We released that a while ago, I think last year even sometime. So effective September 1st, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing that non-member view from LodgeMaster. So you'll no longer be able to access non-members. On the events, if a non-member is tied to an event, we are going to turn that into the new non-member per event record type. So if your council registrar was a non-member in your lodge because she came to every event and helped with check-in but wasn't an Arrowman, she was just there in the morning, she will still show up in all those events that she was at as a non-member. It'll just be in a per event non-member. We are going to do that for your lodge. You won't have to do anything. The real change you're going to notice, they'll still be in the events, but you won't see them in member editor. That non-member view is going to go away. The same thing is going to happen in units. Right now, you can link a member as a unit contact to a unit. Beginning September 1st, you will no longer be able to link a LodgeMaster member to a unit as a unit contact. You will add them as non-member records similar to events. They'll be specific to that unit as a non-member contact. We will run a process to convert any unit contacts that are linked to a member. We will convert those to non-members for you. So you won't notice any change there. The biggest change will be you won't have the ability to access those non-member records in the member module. And we're doing that just to simplify things. It's much simpler with the non-members on a per event basis than on a per unit basis. We kind of started that process with the unit and event non-members. We're going to finish that in September, and finish out that change by fully removing those non-members. We're also going to do the same with inactive. The inactive members flag in those views in the Lodge client and in the top or in the member managers of those special views. It'll disappear from there as well. Moving on to our last change, the last policy change here is the offline client. We announced this before, but we know with COVID it wasn't a normal year, and you maybe didn't use the offline we normally would. But beginning with Lodge client version 4.6.0, so that's our next major release. The Lodge client will transition to being only available by request. Your designated Lodge administrators who are appointed by the Council Scout Executive must request offline access. That request then comes to the LodgeMaster team and we review that based on need. The reason for this, I'm going to throw this up here. Please make note, this is the offline client access request form. But the reason we're doing this, we did announce before, but why we're making that switch now, to allow for quicker updates and easier updates, not maintaining that offline client for every lodge. We know that not every lodge uses it, a very small percentage does. We know that there are those lodges that don't have internet that absolutely need it. We recognize there's a large number of lodges that don't need the offline client. So we're going to save some of our time when we do updates. Also save on some of our infrastructure, not having to support all those offline Lodge client installs and all the offline client, all the overhead that goes with that and maintaining that for a lodge. We talked about this before. We just want to bring it up and remind everyone that, and then put a date out there that with Lodge client 4.6.0, we are going to transition to that model. Mike, do you want to add anything on policy changes before we move on?
No, just one other note of something that's coming over the next probably month. The BSA has done some changes to their API, and we're going to be slightly changing our member verification process. So going forward, right now we send BSA IDs and get back data for any BSA ID. Going forward, we're basically going to be providing the BSA ID with the BSA ID gender and date of birth, and it will send back data if all of those match. Otherwise, it'll just send an error message. So you won't see date of birth or gender for non-matches. That's just part of a security update that the BSA has implemented and something we're working on to match what they've done. So we don't really have any options there, but we just wanted to let everybody know that you won't notice a major difference in the process. Just you'll see an error message depending on what type of non-match it is versus seeing details for non-matches.
Thanks, Mike. So moving on, we want to talk about real quickly, because we don't spend a lot of, we've mentioned this, but we want to make sure everybody is aware of this. I know we are over, so we are going to do our best to get through this and try to get to the pile of questions that are rolling in. But two ways you can connect with the LodgeMaster team, and one way is through our user group. It is on Facebook, so you do have to have Facebook. It's just the easiest platform where the largest number of users were, so that's why we do that there. If you don't use Facebook, I apologize, but that's where our bulk of our users were, and it was easiest to have the group. So we do have a user group on Facebook where you can ask questions. The community is fantastic. There's some of the best LodgeMaster users across the country are in that group, from very large lodges, the largest lodges in the country, down to the smallest lodges. So if you're worried about, I'm a small lodge and I don't want to ask my question because these are all large lodges in here, please join and post your question. We have admins from every lodge across the country, every lodge size, that they're eager to have, happy to help and will answer your question. Feature voting. We released this is a newer feature, newish, but you have the ability by going to lodgemaster-features.oa-bsa.org to submit feature requests to the team. We review those on a regular basis, and work to implement those in Lodge Client. It's a great way if you want to see a feature added, or you think LodgeMaster should do something it doesn't, or we could do something better. Please go to that address there for the feature voting and suggest that feature. Vote on features that are there. There is some policies around what is required of a feature, or what's required of a suggestion to make it through the process. You got to get a certain number of votes and some time and the time period. It's all explained on that site. So definitely go submit your features and go vote on those ideas that are there. We review that regularly. Connect with us on social media. We are on all the social channels, Facebook and Twitter. We do have a YouTube channel. If you visit that, we record all of our national trainings and all of our webinars like this. We repost them there on YouTube. While you're there, if you subscribe to us, we would appreciate it. That's a great resource as well. Lastly, we want to point out is subscribing to our email list. So we mentioned that we send things out periodically. This is how you can do that by going to lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org. On the right-hand side, there's a form, first name, last name, email. You submit that, you get on our national email list, and we send things out about updates to Lodge Client. We send out notices about events like this. If we're going to be at Momentum or something, or NOAC doing a training, which we will be in 2022, we kind of send out what we're offering and things we're doing to that email list first. So it's kind of a VIP access to what the LodgeMaster team's up to. So if you're interested in staying up to date, subscribe to that. It's a great way to be involved. Lastly, I want to mention how you get support from us. So you can go to lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org/support. There we have documentation. We're always looking for people to help with documentation. So if you like writing documentation, or you've mastered how to send email on LodgeMaster and you want to teach other people how to do it, we would love for you to write documentation for us. You don't have to write a lot, but if you want to write a page or two on one specific thing, we would gladly welcome that. You can get in touch with us submitting support tickets from that address. You can also email us support@lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org. That'll create a ticket for you. If you're interested in helping, go ahead and hit us up at that email and let us know that you want to help with documentation. You heard it on the webinar from Chad, Mike, and Rob, and we'll get you set up. Our system status, we do have a live system status page, status.oa-bsa.org. When we're going to be doing maintenance, or we have some downtime, we do post it there. So if you can't get into LodgeMaster, check that out. We do strive for 100% uptime, but things happen and we have to do maintenance, and you can see it there. We wanted to show everybody, this is LodgeMaster website, lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org. Here's how you subscribe to the email list. You can go ahead and put your information in there and join us, and that signs you up for our email list, and you'll get our emails. Our documentation right here, you can visit our documentation. Here's our documentation. You can file a support request to view your support request. The documentation is located under our Lodge documentation. You can see we have a number of things. If it's blank, that's where we could use your help, and send us an email and we can get you hooked up there. Our feature requests, you can access feature requests from the LodgeMaster site by clicking on the feature request button. And it'll take you to our feature request site. And here's where you can vote on those features and add your own suggestion. The LodgeMaster site's a great website to bookmark and use that to navigate around to the Lodge client or documentation or whatever application you're trying to access. With that, I am going to skip ahead. We want to thank everyone for joining. Don't go anywhere yet. Hold on. Don't hit the leave button. But we do want to thank everyone. We greatly appreciate everybody making time and joining us. We do apologize again for the little webinar issue we had. We'll ensure when we look into that does not happen in the future, because it doesn't look like everybody was able to rejoin us. So we're very sorry. We'll try to recover the first part of this recording and post it. If we can't, catch us on our next webinar and know that that was not our intent for that to happen, or to lose that recording or any of those questions that were submitted. So on behalf of the LodgeMaster team, again, thank you. I am going to now jump back to Q&A. I see we have a lot. We had a lot submitted before. So Mike and Rob, if you wanted to start throwing them out, I'll do my best to answer. We'll stay on and try to answer as many as we can. The number we have, I don't know if it's feasible for us to email everyone after, but we'll take as many as we can. So with that, I'll be quiet and we'll do some questions.
All right, so one question we had was, why were the unit details, you did a demonstration of requesting an election, let's say, why were the unit details not pre-populated? And to answer that right now, since those links are not secure, like you don't have to log in to access those links, it doesn't pull in any information from the database for a unit, like the unit leader's information. It has to be typed in. Just because those are emailed links that aren't securely logged into, that's just to ensure everyone's safety.
Michael, we have a lot of people asking about BSA IDs and what happens to people who don't have BSA IDs on their membership record when we make that change.
Yeah, so nothing major will happen. You just won't be able to access the OALM ID in the grid or in member editor. Behind the scenes, we'll still be using IDs for member records, and all the members will still be there. There'll just be a blank in the BSA ID column, and other than that, there won't really be a change.
Mike, can I add in there quick? We do
Sure.
have an ability for you to upload BSA IDs.
Correct, yes.
So if you get a file from your council with all the BSA IDs, if you do a VLOOKUP or some fancy Excel formula to fill those in, you can't import them. So that's a quick way to fill them all in.
Yeah, and really we've announced it so far in advance. There's a couple lodges who use them on membership cards or for checking in for events, and we wanted to provide that information far in advance for those lodges that have processes like that to make sure they switch over to using BSA ID. But for the average lodge, it really shouldn't have a super effect on anything. You really just won't see that OALM ID in a column in the grid or in the top right on member editor, but you won't see a major difference otherwise.
And a similar question to that is they're asking, some people are asking about people with multiple BSA IDs.
So through your council, you can request that multiple IDs be merged into one. That's by and far the best way of handling something like that. A person really should have only one ID, at least only one ID in a council, in which case for a lodge, you should use that one ID. Were there any more on that, Rob?
Not really on the BSA IDs. I have a related one on the verification. If you select Run BSA Verification under Tools on the member screen, does it populate the BSA ID field?
No, so that uses the BSA ID to run that verification. A lodge will need to take the time to either record by record or using the BSA ID import and matching with council data, put those BSA IDs in for members. There is a specific reason why we have it on all of the election stuff now, in all of the inputs for council, for units, excuse me, and even for the adult nominations, is to going forward to make sure we're collecting that information at any point possible.
I have two BSA ID related ones. BSA ID issue is the BSA ID issue we have is it's not using our event registrations. We need to change to that. If you're using OALM ID or Lodge ID, yes, we would highly recommend you switch to having them put their BSA ID in, since that's what we're going to. Related to that, if you're in multiple units, I don't know if this is related to BSA ID. I think it's related to inductions. If you're in multiple units, you'll get an email for each unit and go into the portal for each unit. The emails will designate what unit that's for.
We had a question, Chad. Who gets notified when an election's been requested?
It will notify the chapter contacts. If the chapter contacts are not defined in induction setup, it rolls up to the lodge contacts.
We'd have another question that I'll take. Leaders have been asking for an easier way to decline a visit. We purposely, at least at this point, did not build a way to decline elections through the online request portal. Making it too easy for unit leaders to do that makes it too easy for them to skip out an election where they should really having a visit instead. So the goal was, if a unit needs to decline an election, they don't have anyone eligible, that you would have a conversation, the chapter leaders would have a conversation with them about still having a visit and making sure that you can still get in front of that unit.
I actually have one about duplicates. With OALM IDs hidden, is there a better way to distinguish duplicate records? For instance, individuals who have the same multiple records with the same BSA ID, but one of them's a duplicate.
So we don't allow input of duplicates anymore. And if you try and edit and save a record, you can't save a duplicate BSA ID anymore. We could certainly add a report of duplicate BSA IDs to make that process easier if need be.
And then another individual is actually asking about the change to inactive members. Can you repeat or clarify that?
So we have a number of, I would call it separate lists of members. One is ineligible, one is deceased. There was a very old usage called inactive, and in the Lodge client in that dropdown, you'll see it says inactive and it says deprecated next to it. We're simply removing that list and all those members will just be marked as deleted.
A question here, when an election is posted, does it also post a unit visit, an election in the unit record? Yes, it does now.
Yeah, so that's new functionality. So if you approve an election, it will write a unit visit and election automatically to the unit communications in the unit. And we did run a cleanup, so it added them for all past approved elections as well.
I have a question about how can we get candidates from 2020 to get emails from the induction portal?
Except for the couple lodges that beta tested the inductions last year, they won't be in elections in the induction portal, but you can always just send general emails to those candidates from the member grid. And if you need to, you could add a specific filter that just says where the election date is less than this and greater than this to grab those just eligible from last year.
There's a question, can multiple units be added to a member? No, you'd need to set their primary unit. They should have like a primary registration with the BSA, a primary unit they're a member of. We would recommend setting that, but you cannot set multiple.
We had a question about turning off the emails again. So just to clarify for everybody, because there were a couple of repeat questions on this, except for the unit emails and the 2 congratulation ones, you can turn off all of the other emails now using the enabled box if need be, like Chad demonstrated before.
There's a question, will unit leaders be able to submit eligible scouts via scout book? Right now, you cannot due to the joint development effort. Our goal is still to have that in the future. That's dependent on working with the BSA. So keep an eye out for our emails and updates on that. We hope to add that, but we don't have a date or anything on that.
Somebody asked about the link to the import template. If you actually go into the election grid and choose the import button for a unit, the template will actually be listed with a link to it right on the screen. We had a couple questions since we mentioned the future dues and event registrations, how the financial side will be handled. Our plan right now is we would work directly with a payment processor, not with a council's event registration system, but with different payment processors. And off the bat, we're going to support authorize.net, Stripe, and PayPal Pro.
I have a question here about, let's see here. Since we're not using OA IDs anymore, are we going to be blocking non-members from being added to a member table or being added to the members?
So you'll still be able to, the BSA ID field is required for adding members going forward, but you'll still be able to add non-members for events and units and stuff like that. It's just, you're not using an ID to reference a person like that then.
Mike, there's a question here. With COVID, we have over 200 candidates from last year that are eligible this year. Is there a way to send them a portal invite, or do we have to do it one by one?
We are going to be adding batch functionality to send portal invites. We're hoping to get a couple more pieces in place for the member portal first, and then we'll definitely be rolling that out to everybody.
A question about events and non-members. So when we get a lot of airmen from other lodges at our annual banquet, how can we handle that for this event?
So the process hasn't really changed. We haven't supported adding non-members in the past, I'd say 2 years now to events. So you can still add a non-member to an event. There's a specific option right in the event attendee grid under add. Just click the little arrow next to add member and it'll show you another option to add a non-member. Nothing's changed with that process. We're just cleaning out old non-members that we used to support years and years ago that could be repeated on multiple events.
Another one about Scoutmasters. We keep Scoutmasters in the database even though they are not members. Will we have a problem keeping track of them? I believe that they mean that they've added them as members in Member Manager.
So you can still do that if you'd like. Nobody's been able to add a non-member for a couple of years now, so nothing will change with that process if you're adding them to just as non-dues paid members as part of your member list. But if the goal is to email or contact them, maybe we need to think about additional tools for contacting unit contacts and stuff like that. And if you have ideas, definitely reach out to us.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chad.
There's a question. Does this mean more integration with Scutbook? I'm guessing you're talking about the change to the BSA ID. Right now, we have the verification. There's no definitive plans to add anything else, but having everybody with a BSA ID definitely makes it possible in the future to do more integration with the BSA. Right now, there's no definitive plans to add anything else outside of that verification.
I have a general question here. It's actually probably a little big for this Q&A, but I think it's well worth asking. What is the best way for event check-in with LodgeMaster?
So yeah, if you have a specific question about that, maybe submit a support ticket and we'll be happy to help you sort of lead through the process and the different options for simple and the complete check-in process and how that all works.
There's a question on how will we be able to keep legacy members in LodgeMaster for notifications. Example, legacy vigil honor members. Those would still be members records. They would still be airmen. So if they're not paying dues, you could definitely leave them in there. But they would be airmen, not non-members. So you should still be able to track them in there, and you could target them in emails. That won't change.
I have one here. It's as a council registrar and admin in LodgeMaster, what report do I generate to import the BSA ID verification since I cannot edit the BSA ID field?
Can you repeat that, Rob?
I believe it's a council registrar asking what report they can run to basically get the BSA IDs, to import the BSA ID verification since I can't edit the BSA ID field. Maybe.
So BSA ID field is editable if it's not already verified. So you can change it for anybody where the BSA ID is not already verified. Maybe that helps answer that question.
Yeah, I was trying to follow that one too, unfortunately, but okay, great.
So we did have a question about people who have entered some elections or from past years not using the induction module. You can just mark an election as completed and approved without adding any candidates to it if you want to just show those elections as complete for this year. And we did have a couple questions related to this, so I want to make sure we cover it. The adult nomination portal right now is calculating based on how many people were elected. It doesn't include that specific offer for unit leaders. We figured that would be handled a separate way in the instances where that comes up, which is probably not overly often, because otherwise there's no way to enforce the percentage limits. If you have ideas about that though, we're happy to talk about it more. You can submit a support ticket or a feature request or something like that.
Question here, we use non-members for unit leaders and committee chairs. Will that continue? Yeah, it'll continue in the sense you'll add them as non-members on the unit. They won't be a non-member in the member database or in in members, the special non-member flag. We'll convert all your existing non-member unit leaders and committee chairs to the new unit non-member, so you can still do that.
Yeah, just to clarify what Chad was saying, in unit contacts right now, you can add a unit contact as as a non-member, and that's what's going to be there going forward. The one where you can add as a member and choose a member record, that's what won't be available anymore. And the reason we're doing this is it allows the unit sync and for you to keep that unit information up to date from the BSA, which is much more important than tying it specifically to members in the database. We did have a question about the adult nominations. If an election had already been approved before today when the adult nominations were released, they won't automatically get a unit recap email, but you can copy that link by going into the unit grid, choose a unit and hit view, and you'll see the link for adult nominations on the right, and you can email them that link.
A question about what happens if the candidates were entered in the member manager and there's an election in the inductions module. How can we close out the election?
Yeah, so you can just input the election date and approve it as complete without putting the candidates in, just to close it out for this year if you imported some or added some from members directly and not using the induction module. Though certainly going forward, we would encourage you to add all the candidates through the induction module so that it can track the whole process for you.
Can historical membership records be added without a BSA ID?
Yes, you'll still be able to add a record to the member list without a BSA ID. They just won't have that reference ID on them.
If 2020 candidates are sent a portal invite, will they see the ordeal journey and other candidate information?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody who's eligible will see the current year's journey and anything for the ordeal process, as long as they're eligible within the 2-year window. We did have a question about the new thing that Chad showed tonight for adding eligible youth to an election. It is a link, so it's going to the unit leader, but if he does forward it to another leader, they'll be able to enter that information. It's not something that you do through a login.
There is a question, does the support page have good details to walk through for the unit sync? Yes, there's very, very, very detailed documentation, and we highly recommend that you look through that before running that, because it does make some irreversible changes. Another one I have, somebody asked how you can disable the emails. I'll show that quick. In induction setup under communications, if you edit one of the emails, there's an is enabled flag. So that's how you can disable those emails, is with that is enabled flag.
So one question about the new input of eligible youth. Unit leaders will be able to go in and add additional if there's already youth tied to an election, or they will be able to add more if they've already added them once. You can't edit any youth that are added, and you'll only be able to see first name and last initial, just because, again, those are just links and not a secure login. So we can't let all of that information be publicly available once it's saved and input.
We've had a few questions on how to submit questions. I did put that slide back up, and it's just email support@lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org.
We're down to the last couple of questions here. Basic training, if you go to our documentation site, there's a link to all the trainings that we've done and videos and stuff. So that would be the best place. So lodgemaster.oa-bsa.org/support, and then you can find all of those. Let's see, to close an election, the status and future date need to be entered. So if you want to just close an election because I'm guessing it's because you've imported candidates a different way, just put in the election date of today or whatever, and then just save the election and approve it.
There's a question, the OALM ID removal will not impact the sync. It will not impact any sync. Everything will sync correctly. Nothing will change there.
All right, we're down to our last 5 questions here. Somebody had a question about portal invitations and people not accepting them. If you have a question about that, submit a support ticket and we can definitely look into it more. A couple questions, or a question about previewing the emails. You can, the preview that you see on the screen should be an accurate representation of all the text that would go out in the emails. So you can't send actual preview emails because it's all tied to specific either member or unit data. So we can't generate a preview in that sense. One question was about probably the candidate congratulations emails. Those emails will only go out if an election is approved and it was either said that the announcement date was already announced or the future date has passed. So if a unit doesn't want to announce their election results, make sure you put in select future date for the announcement status and choose a future date, and those emails won't go out until after that date. I guess a question about elections for future years. So we'll be loading up the 2022 election season this summer. So that'll be available for you to use going forward with all the emails and everything related this summer for whenever you want to kick off your election season.
Does marking an event in the ordeal as an ordeal make it show up in the new member portal?
All events will show up.
Yes, all events will show up as either
required.
a chapter event or a lodge event. We did have a question, if you haven't used the induction module, you won't be able to use adult nominations through the induction module because it's all tied to the unit themselves. And looks like last question. If you have specific examples or issues with the BSA verification and are getting non-matches, we're happy to look at it. So just submit a support ticket and somebody can take a look at it.
All right, and with that, we are at a little over half an hour over, and we still have 125 people. So thank you for sticking with us. If we didn't get to your question you submitted before, we will try to follow up with those with an email if we didn't cover them. We will work on the recording. We may only have half the recording, but we will do our best to get something out there. I think we had a record number of questions and large number on. So thank you again. We are going to end this. So we'll see you on our next webinar. If you have questions, reach out. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you, everybody, for your support.
Thank you.